What's up, friends, lovers, enemies of the state? It's so good to see you again. I am here to do something very exciting, which is to review Call Me By Your Name. This book was very, very good, and I was not expecting it to be this good. I actually, just to start off, I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I was not expecting to give it that high of a rating. Because from what I remember the movie being, it was good, but it wasn't like amazing. But it was also still in the style that I really like. Obviously, the movie was very European. And I think maybe I have some issues with the age difference between the characters. For obvious reasons, I don't think that 24-year-olds should be dating 17-year-olds. I think that that is really messed up. And it shouldn't be something that we support in our society because it's not healthy for the younger person. And the older person is doing something insidious when they engage with a younger person in that way. But it was also very, very good. I thought that I was going to be extremely irritated by the amount of tension between the characters and just like Elio's frustration, but instead it felt completely natural. I tend to really like books where the male main character is in a lot of like emotional pain, is like struggling with things, is really just has a lot of adolescent anger. That's something that I really enjoy. I really like Catcher in the Rye, and also my favorite book, Invincible Summer by Hannah Moskowitz, has a lot of teen anger and anguish. Especially male teen anguish. And the reason that I like this is because as a genderqueer person, that's a big part of what I identify with the masculine experience. So that's just a little bit of an explanation of why I like that. The style of this book was amazing. It was beautiful. It was so lyrical, and I just didn't expect it to be like that. I probably could have anticipated that based off of the movie and the way that the movie was done and the dialogue, but I didn't because I'm stupid. But it's a lot like Camus' style. And I'm not talking about The Stranger because The Stranger sucks. I'm talking about The Myth of Sisyphus. I don't remember what the other one is called. I think it's Exile. It's got a bunch of different like names based off the translation that you read. But I read a lot of Camus this summer. So this kind of put me back into that mood and made me really feel like very summery, which is my favorite time of year. I would literally do anything for it to be summer all year long. It wasn't summery in the way that like I can feel a sunburn. Like for me, that's really a huge part of summer is like that first sunburn that you get, and then just like the way that the sun really like heats up your skin. This book wasn't necessarily like that, and that's part of that is because like they weren't really on the beach, and like Elio spent a lot of time inside brooding, and it was very icy in terms of the way that the book felt and the way that the characters felt towards each other for a lot of the book, as opposed to like Invincible Summer is very warm, very hot. Like the entire book has a sunburn, if what I'm saying makes sense. And if it doesn't, I don't really care because it makes sense to me. You know, actually a lot of differences between the book and the movie in terms of that the book really nothing happened, but in the movie they definitely took a lot of liberties and added a lot of, they really like embellished some of the relationships between Elio and the other characters in ways to make it make sense to the viewer. Because in the book, a lot of it was just sort of Elio being on his own or, you know, transcribing music next to Oliver and being sad and moody. But in the movie, he really has a relationship with Marzia, and he has a relationship with his parents in ways that just is absolutely not shown in the book. And I definitely think that those embellishments helped make the movie make a lot of sense. It was really good. Definitely one of the things that I struggled with is there's a different tone to the movie and to the book, especially with the end. The last section, because it's split up into 4 sections, the last section is called Ghost Spots, and it's obviously the denouement. And so it's Elio and Oliver have split already. Oliver has gone home. Elio is back in B, which is the town that he lives in. And in this section, he and Oliver encounter each other like multiple times. And what's interesting about it, and also painful to read and not that enjoyable, is the fact that they keep on, like, they pass like ships in the night, and also sometimes they encounter each other, and in doing this, they are always like upset that they aren't still together. So Oliver comes and visits the following winter, and he and Elio kiss, and it's very clear that Oliver wants to be with Elio, and Elio has been pining after Oliver this whole time, but Oliver's like, I can't, I have a girlfriend. And it's upsetting to me as a reader and as a queer person, this fact that they are choosing these different lives, and they're not choosing to be together and to live the life that I think that they should be, because it seems like that's the happiest choice, and if they were to choose happiness, they would be together instead of suffering. There is this really interesting idea of living 2 lives in a way that comes up at the end of the book. And so the dad says on page 225, he says, most of us can't help but live as though we've got 2 lives to live. One is the mock-up, the other the finished version. And the idea is that Elio, when he's young, is at this point in his life where he could choose which one he wants to make his relationship with Oliver be. Which one is going to be the mock-up? If you've read this book and if you've seen the movie, it's somewhat clear that his affair with Oliver is the mock-up, and that's really depressing and honestly, I think hurtful as queer people to think of our queer lives as the mock-up and the not real version and not the finished product, because I personally disagree with that interpretation of how we should live our lives. And I think it's clear that the father in this story also doesn't see it that way. But Elio is somewhat of a sponge. He's always taking things in. Whereas Oliver is very much that person who's living 2 lives. And so later on, they encounter each other, and Oliver says, I want to find it. I found this quote because I think it's really important when looking at this book to think about. And so this is like way later. They're both pretty old. Oliver and what's his name? Oliver and Elio are meeting up again. This is the last time that they really encounter each other that we read of. And so Oliver says to him, seeing you here is like waking from a 20-year coma. You look around you and you find that your wife has left you, your children, whose childhood you totally missed out on, are grown men, some are married. Your parents have died long ago, you have no friends, and that tiny face staring at you through goggles belongs to none other than your grandson, who's been brought along to welcome Gramps from his long sleep. Your face in the mirror is as white as Rip Van Winkle's, but here's the catch. You're still 20 years younger than those gathered around you, which is why I can be 24 in a second. I am 24. And if you push the parable a few years further up, I could wake up and be younger than my elder son. And so Elio asks, what does this say about the life you've lived then? And Oliver says, part of it, just part of it, was a coma, but I prefer to call it a parallel life. It sounds better. Problem is most of us live that is, more than 2 parallel lives. Elio's dad warns him not to live these 2 parallel lives and to choose like the most vivacious one, I guess, or to live his life without entering into a coma or becoming sort of or letting one version of his life be a mock-up. And Oliver is sort of the exemplification of that mistake, because Elio has sort of let Oliver be in control of the whole relationship because he's the younger one and he was 17 when it all happened, and Oliver was going back home to the States, and then he got engaged and all of these things. Sort of as the reader, we see that Oliver has what made that I think, and I think many of the readers will see it as a mistake. And we never really know about Elio's life, about like what he did afterwards, about if he lived in the same way, in the same way that Oliver did. And I think it is really something interesting to think about. I mean, I highly recommend this book based off of the lyricism. And I think a lot of the time people are highly critical of male characters like Elio, which I, as someone who identifies similarly to Elio, think is stupid. We all have different opinions on books, which is why I would love for you guys to let me know what you think of this. I would love for you to support me on Patreon. Maybe if you guys are interested, I could do a side-by-side comparison with the book and the movie there. When you support me on Patreon, you help to fund the editing software that I use. I would love to get a quiet lens instead of the one that I have now, which makes it impossible and very difficult to film. But it's fine. You can find all of my socials below. You can find all of the other work that I do, like podcasts and my book. It's all there. It's all down below. Before I forget, next month's book is Autobiography by Christina Lauren. I impulse bought this book because everyone on my Goodreads feed was reading it. It's about a bisexual boy. Very exciting. We never get bisexual male representation. And it's also about Utah. So I'm very interested because the Mormons, very excited about this. I'm really excited to be reading something that a lot of people I know have read. I've just been hearing a lot of buzz about it. I loved Call Me By Your Name, and I'm shook by it. I'm shook by the fact that I loved it. So go read it. I have a book depository link down below so you can go and get it. Very excited to get to this next book because this book was good. Whenever I get on a roll of good books, it's just like more excited to like keep reading. So yeah. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.
Oh, Mamma Mia, here I go again. My, how could I resist you? Mamma Mia, does it show again?